Now, as you know, the Prime Minister made a magnificent decision on behalf of the government and through Maurice Payne, which was to tear up that awful Belton Road initiative. It is a terrible decision which was made by the Victorian government, and we're going to dig deep into the other two deals that they did with, among other countries like Iran and Syria. What's going on in Victoria? Can't wait to talk to the gang about that. But here's the Prime Minister talking about why Belton Road, foreign deals with China is bad news for the country and why it's going into the shredder.
We will always act in Australia's national interest to protect Australia, but to also ensure that we can advance our national interests of a free and open Indo-Pacific and a world that seeks a balance in favour of freedom.
Now, we know that Daniel Andrews isn't at work, but his Twitter machine is working when he wants to tell us that he'll be back at work eventually. He has said nothing about the decision to tear up a deal that he entered into a couple of years ago. So this was the response from the Victorian government today.
The federal government is responsible for foreign policy. The legislation that we're talking about is legislation of the Commonwealth Parliament. Our determination to deliver on our major projects agenda is unimpacted.
What? The whole point is you need to care where the money comes from and what is in exchange for that. Instead, the spin today was this decision will mean that you don't get the trains and the buses and all. It's rubbish. Because you know there's a true price to be paid by all of this. It's something we're afraid of in smaller Pacific Island nations, but it was happening in our second biggest state, Victoria. And Each Way Albo would like you to believe that he is all in for the decision to tear up this particular arrangement. Here is him having it one way.
The federal government should have responsibility for these matters. I note the Victorian government has accepted the decision and we move on from there.
Oh, such strong leadership. But what about this at its heart? Is China the type of country that we want to be enslaved to? Is it the type of country that we wish to be subservient to? Or more importantly, is it the type of country that we need to start pushing back against for all the reasons we've well established on this program and you have known in your heart for a very long time? Well, this is the Each Way Albo bit, because here is the Labor Party when talking pro-China, that to anger China by calling out China for its mismanagement of a global pandemic that killed how many and destroyed almost every other Western country? This was what Labor was saying every time Australia would be punished for trying to hold China to the global Western standard.
It is an important relationship.
But it will require sensible diplomacy and sensitive approaches.
We've been demonising the Chinese and their system of governance, and we need to normalise this relationship to manage our relationship with China.
I think it's very important that we respond in a calm and measured way.
That's something that we should be negotiating and working through with China in a respectful way.
Now, you saw Joel Fitzgibbon. I'll give him a chance to respond in a couple of seconds. But here is the form. Remember, even taxpayer television has done reports about how there have been ASIO concerns about the connection of the Chinese Communist Party into the Australian political system via old mate Sam Dastyari, all of those Labor donations. Like, remember the $100,000 cash donation to Labor Party headquarters? Of course, Albo has no knowledge of any of that, despite, of course, being from New South Wales and the most powerful figure in the party. And then there was the decision last year to pull taxpayers' funds from a think tank called China Matters, because, put simply, it was a backdoor to Chinese propaganda, or to manage the relationship. Well, guess what? Even after the Australian government decided to pull your money from China Matters, the Shadow Cabinet kept meeting with China Matters, something that the now former Labor MP, Michael Danby, was unafraid to call out as outrageous.
But it's not appropriate for a lobbyist, ex-diplomat, to be making comments about a Labor Party ideological differences. People are perfectly entitled to stand up for the Tibetans,
for the 2 million Uyghur people that are in concentration camps in China, or to be more alarmed about China's activities in the South China Sea.
That's the point. Yet the message that is being said, or was said at that time to the Shadow Cabinet by reporting, clearly I wasn't in the room, was to stress the importance of the relationship, to not anger China. But the truth is, by holding them to the same standards that we are held to by every other country in the world, that angers them. Time to keep pushing back. Thank goodness for the government that we have and the Prime Minister that we have who is consistently doing that.